Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have some very terrifying encounters to share with you. I also have some very interesting information that was just recently passed down to me. I don't know how to feel about it, but I will share with you guys what I know until this person either comes on the channel or writes out exactly what they want to share. Once again, I don't know how to feel about it until I hear it from this person's mouth itself. It does kind of resonate, but I don't know. You'll see when I get into it. Now, a couple links before we get into today's upload. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost you a cent. Click that like button, and please leave a comment. It really does help, and guys, it honestly does matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get into today's upload, shall we? Today's first encounter. Several years ago, after a long and difficult work week, I was finally able to sit down and begin enjoying my Friday evening when I received a call late in the evening that there had been a family emergency, resulting in the immediate hospitalization of a family member involved. The hospital was in Georgia, and I lived in Texas at the time. Now, I was no stranger to frequent travel, but it was all done by road, as I would not take a plane anywhere. I was used to long interstate drives. After all, I had driven through several states to Texas when I moved. So immediately I packed a bag and went to the computer to print out directions. To make this trip, I had to drive through a few states, including Alabama. These days, I can just enter a destination into my phone and get instant live directions. But this happened before smartphones were so widespread, and before I had anything even remotely resembling a GPS. Instead, I used websites like MapQuest and Google Maps to print directions out in advance and carry a state map with me as well, just in case. With that done, I packed everything I needed and set off. The drive through East Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi is not particularly memorable, though I was tired after hours of traveling into the night. I was more worried about my family member, eventually along the part leading to Birmingham, Alabama. However, I was surprised to find a huge traffic jam. Back then, I was annoyed that there would be so many people on the road that late at night, to the point of creating a traffic jam. I was eventually able to exit the highway and went to refill my car at a gas station, where an employee told me the traffic jam was most likely due to the major football victory and the post-game celebrations running into the night. I was determined not to lose any additional time being stuck in traffic. I looked over the maps carefully and found what appeared to be back roads that would take me away from the city, but also around the traffic jam. I would be able to get back to the highway at some point beyond the city. So instead of returning to the highway, I took the new route I had mapped out. Everything was fine at first. There were fewer cars, and I was finally able to move at an acceptable pace. However, more than an hour later, it no longer seemed like a good idea at all to take this route. I hadn't seen any signs of people, meaning cars, houses, or any kind of building, really, for a while now. And then eventually, There were no more streetlights either, except for the light coming from my own car's headlights in front of me. There was no light at all. Also, wherever it was that I had gotten to, I had to drive rather slowly as the road kept curving, and I was afraid of hitting something that I would not be able to see in time. I could see enough, however, to be keenly aware that there was dense woods reaching into the darkness on both sides of the road. I had seen similar sights in other states, but never by myself at 2 a.m. I was starting to get a little worried, especially in terms of the risk of being lost and stranded in the middle of nowhere, but I didn't know if it would be better to turn back or keep going, so I pulled off the road to look at my map and try to figure out where I was. Having parked the car, I got my flashlight out to check the map. As I studied it, I heard a sudden noise on the side of the car. Ignoring it, though, then something hit the car a little harder. It was louder, and it startled me. I had the window down and aimed the flashlight at the noise, but didn't see anything. Then another noise occurred on the opposite side of the car, followed by another. Since the window was open, I could easily tell that it was not windy at all, and it was not raining either, so I didn't know what had caused the things to keep hitting my car. I was worried some wild animal had gotten near, and I began to close the windows, when I heard what sounded like a branch breaking from the forested area on the opposite side of the road from me. When I shined the light in the direction, I saw a pair of red eyes shining back at me. I held my breath and stopped breathing altogether for that very moment. I was not familiar at all with the Alabama wildlife and wouldn't be able to tell you what lived out there that had red eye shine. I saw also that the eyes appeared to be set a little far apart from one another, which made me think whatever this was had to be big. I stared into the darkness to try and better see what sort of animal it was. A normal animal should have gone on its way, but this was waiting there, watching. And then something hit the car from the opposite side. I looked in the direction and saw another pair of eyes in the trees beyond. The distance to the second pair of eyes seemed further, at least relatively further from my position, than the distance to the first pair of eyes. Since the first pair of eyes seemed to be closer, I quickly looked back at them to make sure it wasn't coming closer to me in the meantime. The first pair of eyes were still originally where they were at, but now they began to rise upward. While still looking directly at me, it went from probably a few feet from the ground to almost 3 times its original height. It was still in the woods, but I expect that if it was a raccoon or any other animal climbing a tree, it would have at least looked away from me at some point, but no, this thing was just standing there. It didn't move left or right. It didn't look away. It was just staring at me. I was transfixed, and then something hit the car much harder from the other side. That snapped me out of my fascination, and I started to get the car out of there. I drove away, and then through the darkness I was able to see if they were in the road behind me. I didn't see any eye shine in the area behind me as I drove. At that point, I just wanted to get away as fast as possible. I could figure out the rest of the road later, and once I had gained some distance, I began to start feeling better, relatively, really, that it had not followed me, or so I thought. What I heard next, I will never forget. Roars seemed to erupt out of the darkness from the trees all around me, roars so loud, so deep that the car itself was vibrating as if a response. Have you ever been in a car when a plane flew over low, causing your car to shake and vibrate? That's what it felt like was happening. It's not just that I could hear it in my ears, but I felt it through my hands as I gripped my steering wheel. And I felt it through my legs and through my feet on the car's floor. And I felt it through my back on the driver's seat. It was so loud and deafening that it felt as if this sound was reverberating through my bones. By then I was urgently trying to get away, but was still forced to drive more slowly than I would have preferred to because of the darkness and the curvy road. A very bad possibility, as I saw it at that moment, would have been to drive off the road. Even worse, though, would have been to hit something on the road that I feared could appear at any moment, causing an accident and causing me to be stuck out here with whatever was roaring at me. I was able to get away from the sounds and eventually from the part of the road where the trees were on both sides. After some more driving, I eventually found road signs that led me back to larger roads, which in turn would eventually make it possible for me to find my way back to the highway. When I saw a gas station, I pulled in and just sat there for a while trying to calm down and make sense of what just had happened. Eventually, I got out of the car to refill the gas and use the restroom. When I looked my car over afterward, I saw what appeared to be indentations and large claw marks on the side of my vehicle. There was no damage like that before the trip, as I always take very good care of my vehicles. I was not able to explain what had caused it or what I had seen and heard. In fact, I probably would have never thought about it again except for the roaring. I don't feel I've been able to adequately put it into words what it was like to hear or feel something like that. Now, I've never told anyone this before. I mean, who would believe me? I don't have any proof, and maybe someone could explain it away saying, oh, it was a regular animal, which I know it was not. So, what was it? In the years since, I've looked for and listened to recordings of different wildlife: bear, mountain lion, different kinds of wild cats, wolves, coyote, fox, owls, deer, and never found anything that quite came close to having a roar as loud and as deep as what I heard that night on some back roads in Alabama. Tonight's second encounter. A couple of friends and I had packed up camp earlier in the day and were supposed to leave hours ago, but thought we'd enjoy the setting for just a little while longer. We ended up staying longer than planned, but after all, camping had become a rare treat for us, and we enjoyed it. It had gotten darker than we planned for, but I had to go off and find a private area and do my business before driving back. As I headed back to where the others were waiting, it became obvious to me that I was being watched. I had sensed this for some time, but then there were a sudden shuffling noise and leaves moving all around that confirmed my suspicions. More jarring for me was, aside from the noise, it was dead silent. No noise at all from insects or animals is usually a very bad sign, meaning something dangerous is in the area. We had camped deep in some very thick woods, which is why I was more on edge whenever I heard the occasional noise behind me as I moved. If I stopped moving, there was no noise at all. It moved when I did, and I could hear the leaves moving then. I did a spin around and wouldn't see anything. As soon as I got back to the clearing, I waited, staring hard into the darkness, back in the direction I had just come from. The others were just beyond the trees waiting. I could hear them talking even, but I knew I was being followed and I had to see what it was. I was taking so long that one of my friends came and checked on me. He was about to say something, but then he got quiet and pointed in the direction I had just come from, saying that there was something moving in the trees behind me. So I looked at where he pointed in case I could see it now. As I stood there, nothing happened at first, but then I saw a pair of eyes close to the ground, moving closer to me, stopping just beyond the trees and glaring at me from the darkness. It didn't follow me into the clearing, but just ended up sort of staying at the edge of the tree line. I wouldn't even be able to see where it was except for its red eye shine. The way it was so close to the ground gave me the impression of a person crawling on their belly. There was a tense silence, and, thinking that it may have been a person, started shouting at it, challenging it to come out in the open. But it just stayed there, watching me, patiently with its red eyes locked. I waited and waited. My other friends heard me shouting and came to investigate. I hadn't looked away from whatever it was that was watching me, which alerted them to likewise look in that direction. They immediately saw it. The eyes looked at all of us in turn. One of my friends had his pistol on him and took it out. The eyes immediately looked at the pistol, then back at him, back at the pistol. It started to slowly rise up. Slowly, the eyes went from being close to the ground to being about 7 or 8 feet in the air. And the whole time, they never moved their gaze from my friend's pistol. It knew, it had to. The way it reacted meant that it knew what a pistol was. My friend fired a warning shot into the ground in front of it. Then it again slowly looked at him and then back at the pistol, but it also began to start backing away. It didn't turn away while backing off, though. The eyes just moved back, retreating into the darkness, far enough away that I couldn't see them anymore. My friend asked what it was. Neither of us had an idea. And I simply responded that I don't know, but that we should just get out of here. I was thoroughly disturbed by what just happened. I wanted to make sure it was gone, but I also wanted to get out of here. That's when we heard noises moving towards the side and understood that it was probably trying to circle us to get behind us. That was too much. We quickly backed up, watching the area where we last heard the noises until we made it back to where the vehicles were parked. We got in our vehicles as fast as we could and drove home. One of my friends was riding with me, and we really didn't say much to each other. As I drove away, I began to wonder if I was overreacting or imagining danger where there was nothing. Maybe it was just someone playing a prank on us, but something caught my eye in the rear view, and I looked to see a pair of red eyes very high off the ground, watching us as we drove away. All right, like I said in the intro that I had some information that I wanted to share with you all. Also, last night, Friday evening, I was playing around with the video clip from Kirk Stokes. I started to magnify and clear it up a little bit. I might share that. Yeah, I'm definitely going to share that in this video as well. But I want to share that information that was passed on to me Thursday night, actually. Crazy thing is that it's 1:15 Saturday morning, and it is minus 13 degrees in upstate New York. So anyway, let's get into that information that was shared with me. I don't know how to feel about it. That's why I'm sharing it with you. Anytime anything is shared with me, I take it in and I process it. I compare it to other things that I've heard. And by me doing that, really honestly does not necessarily mean that I believe it. It's just more or less a way of processing what I heard and whatnot. Crazy thing is there are still people out there that watch the channel that just because I share something on the channel, like a video or some kind of theory, they think that that is my theory, my video. I 100%, back it. I honestly cannot back anything 100% except my own experience. The platform is for you guys to share your experiences, theories, and whatnot, and not to be judged. So, there are still people out there judging, and I really wish there weren't, but there's always going to be. Anyway, the information. So about a couple weeks ago, around the time of my accident, I had received an interesting phone call in regards to some information that was supposedly from a person of Navajo descent. Now, I got it wrong. I thought that it was a Navajo, the person or their father was a Navajo medicine man, that had also worked with the Catholic Church. Well, some of that was pretty close. It was this person's grandfather who was a Navajo medicine man and worked alongside of the Catholic Church, learned some very interesting things from them and whatnot, and shared some of their lore back and forth with whoever this person was communicating with from the church. So the information that was shared was supposedly dogmen are offspring of Lilith, and that when she was cast out of the Garden of Eden, she had either met up with, I believe, some sort of, I'm not really sure. I don't want to talk about religion because I believe that religion is something that shouldn't be talked about. It's a belief, and it's something that people hold near and dear to their heart. And everyone is entitled to their own belief. So anyway, I guess that Lilith either had bed down with this demon or fallen angel or some sort of whatever. And there were children born. Now, I did look this up, and yes, there were supposedly demonic children that Lilith offspringed. And I guess that this Navajo medicine man had heard it from someone in the church that this is true, and that they looked like a dogman, a werewolf, whatever you want to call it, a walking wolf, a bipedal canine. So I was told this person was going to come on the channel or send me the information. Well, you know, as things happen, people say stuff and you just have to wait or whatnot. I wish I hadn't shared it right away, because then, you know, you guys were wanting to hear more about it. Well, anyway, I get this phone call last night stating that supposedly this guy's either coming on or writing it all out, yada, yada, yada. But the information that was passed down to me was kind of startling. He said that if these dogmen-like creatures or walking wolves had bit someone, that the person then transformed, but did not transform back into a human. There was no constant transformation. It was once they were bit, they transformed. And the person then said to me, now this is not the person of Navajo descent. This is a friend of that person who is hearing this information secondhand, giving it to me, you know, third hand, and now I'm giving it to you, I guess, fourth hand. But I am trying to be as specific with what I was told. So I guess these, after being bit, they change. They do not transform back to human, right? So I was like, huh, that's pretty wild. And I thought about it all last night. And I was like, well, if that was true, just like the person had told me, getting bit by one of these creatures turns you. You don't transform, but you don't transform back to a human once you're transformed. So I'm like, okay. Well, I will kick that idea around in my head for a little bit. And I thought about it, and I was like, well, that could explain the mythology or lore of the werewolf, the transformation, but it doesn't change back to a human. Also, it may account for the missing people, right? And then it also may account for when people see these dogmen-like creatures. Some have just these evil, pure intent, hatred for human beings in their eyes. And other times people claim they remind them of human-like eyes, like there's some sort of emotion behind them, right? So then I was like, well, I feel like Amber Miller and Tony Aaron were killed by the Dogman. There's a couple of other people that I feel that way. Why didn't they transform? And I don't know, because that's the little bit of information I was given. Now, I really am hoping that this person very rapidly either comes on the show and shares more information with, what he had shared to someone else. I just want to hear it from their mouth, like you guys. And not stall. I guess there's some kind of family issue with the person's father, who is son of the Navajo medicine man, is very upset and is still holding on to a cultural grudge and doesn't care. And this guy, I guess, said, we're all Americans. We all need to know about this. People need to know. The government knows. The Vatican knows. Why can't I share it with everyone else? But like I said, this is just something I heard. And it's a perfect example of taking things that we hear and at least giving them a chance to resonate, think about, possibly take a little bit from and discard the rest, but not in a trash bin, but kind of in the recycling bin so you can take it out later and use it again in case you need it, in case something else pops up. So anyway, that was what was shared with me. I hope that this person really, gets it together and comes on, because it sounds quite fascinating. And, until then, I'll just have to wait. And unfortunately, you guys will as well. And I know there'll probably be a million comments about religion and the Bible and this and that in the comment section. But, until we hear it, then, take it in and use it or don't use it. But to attack someone on a theory is just wrong. And that is a big reason why Kirk Stokes left the community. Because we have no idea what these things are. We have only theory. And people are very adamant and hold very strongly to what they believe and will really fight for what they believe. But that's not something you can do in this community. You really, until we have one laying on a slab, cut up by someone who doesn't work for the government, then we'll have our answers. But until then, we just got to really theorize, take from accounts that, compare notes, this and that. But anyway, I hope you guys understood what I was trying to say, and I hope I didn't sound like too much of a dill hole. But let's get on to tonight's third encounter, and then after that I'll share with you a little polished up version of a dogman caught in the woods in Kentucky. All right, guys, here is a perfect example of what I just said. I try to stay out of the comment section because it's your guys' section. I do support, I do throw hearts out there or whatever. But I give my thanks during the video to you guys at the end. So you guys know that I am appreciative of you all. Every once in a while, I do go into the comment section and just kind of peek. And briefly, I had done it earlier today, and a person had commented about Dogman or Bigfoot hair and how it absorbs light and this and that. And at the end, instead of saying that's what I believe or something of that, at the end was just adamant and I hope that helps. Well, my comment back was, that is theory, and theory is not concrete unless you've had one dissected on your kitchen table. Because that's true, Theory is theory. Theory is great. I encourage everyone to share their theories, but if you're going to, don't kind of make it like it's so concrete and unbreakable, because it's not. It's squishy until we have, a solid piece of evidence that we can honestly analyze and have it analyzed through a reliable and reputable source, one that we know cannot be pushed into a corner by the GOVT. So anyway, let's get on to tonight's third encounter. This encounter took place in March of 2015. It started slowly at first, then progressively got more terrifying. Let me give you an image of what my property looks like and my house. My house sits on about a 3/4 acre lot with a large brick home, a warehouse, a barn, and a large carport between the warehouse and barn. My house is all brick with 4x10 framed roof structures. Over the living room is a 2-tiered roof due to the vaulted ceiling. Between the two roofs and a row of windows that overlook the living room, the roof is metal with no insulation. In the master bedroom and the living room is a window 8 feet up that goes to the ceiling. The dining room has 2 sliding glass doors that are 6 feet tall by 10 feet wide. One goes out to the pool and the other goes out to the backyard. The master bedroom has your standard size sliding glass door going out to the pool. The backyards are separated by a gate in the middle between my wood shop attached to the house. The pool side is all concrete and brick with a metal patio roof. The other backyard is all grass with a large maple, large oak tree, and another large tree that is fenced in with a 6-foot tall fence. The carport, the barn, and the warehouse in the back are all metal roofed. The carport is about 40 feet long, 10 feet wide, and about 12 feet deep, sloping downwards back to the back about 10 feet. The warehouse, barn, and carport are back up to the open field with tall grass trees and a game trail that leads down to a seasonal creek. There's motion lights on both sides of the backyard that light up the entire yard. When we first moved in, we had now window blinds or curtains in any room or covering any sliding glass doors. This time of year, the pool is nothing more than just a pond that frogs have taken refuge in. Every night would be filled with frogs croaking, crickets chirping. This night was quiet, not a single sound. It was a very unsettling silence. I had noticed for the first time living here, my dog's behavior had changed that night to a frightful behavior. She wouldn't go outside to eat or take care of her business before going to bed. In fact, she wouldn't go anywhere near the sliding glass doors. That night I heard a loud thump on the carport roof behind our house, which woke me up from my light sleep. I happened to look at the time in my phone, and it was roughly 2 a.m. After a few seconds, I heard something bipedal run across the roof 4 steps, hearing claws scratch on the metal roof. On the 4th step, I heard it jump, then land in the dirt in the backyard. Whatever it was, I heard it land with a thud and a couple of steps. My dog heard this as well and began to crawl under my bed. Now my dog is a 5-year-old chocolate lab mix, with her head coming up to my hip when she's standing on all fours. She weighs about 110 pounds and does not like anyone coming around the house, unless my wife or I bring them in. She's a very good guard dog and is not afraid of anyone. For me to notice her behavior right now has got me nervous, and all of my senses are going into overdrive. As I lie there trying to listen and trying to look out my sliding glass door, my motion sensor light turns on, and I see a large bipedal dark figure dodge the light, going between my workshop into the shadows. Then a few seconds later, I see the light from the other motion sensor go off from the other backyard down the hallway. The lights turn off and I hear a bipedal creature jump the fence, land, run a few steps, jump, and land on the carport roof. It took a couple of steps and then jumped out into the field and was gone. I tried to gather my thoughts and go back to sleep. My dog then tried crawling out from underneath the bed and got stuck. At this point, my wife asked me what's going on. I tried to explain what I heard, and she helped me get the dog unstuck. It took me about an hour to finally fall back to sleep. The next day, I was trying to contemplate what had happened that night, thinking it was just a fluke. I wrote it off like it was nothing. The next night, the same thing happens. I hear a loud thud on the carport. It wakes me up. I look at the clock, and it's roughly 2 a.m. again. I hear the same 4 steps with claws scratching the roof, and it jumping, then landing in the dirt. This night my dog did not crawl under the bed. She didn't do it this time because she got stuck last time. She let out the loudest, deepest growl I'd ever heard her do, then let out a very deep, snarled bark, like, "Don't you dare come near me." She started walking backwards into my son's room, away from the sliding door in my room. My wife wakes up and yells at the dog and asks me what's going on. I told her that I had heard it again, and she agrees with me now that something is going on. I lied there awake for about an hour or so and didn't hear anything else. My dog then comes back and lies down and goes back to sleep. Now I'm feeling more relaxed and fall back to sleep. This kind of trend goes on for about a week. I could almost set my alarm to when it came. It happened every morning between 2 and 3 a.m. My wife was going away for the weekend to her parents' house with our boys. I stayed with the dog that weekend, knowing that whatever is happening, it was going to happen again, and this time I was alone without worrying about my wife and kids. I wanted to know what this was and stayed up all night. My dog's behavior changed again, and she wouldn't go near the sliding doors. I turned off all of the lights inside the house and turned on the motion lights. My screens on the windows are metal screens, not the plastic ones. I hear a scratching noise coming from my window in the bedroom. I walked down my hallway as quietly as I could to see if I could look for what was making the sound. By the time I had gotten there, it stopped. I hear scratching from the window in the living room. I see a shadow coming in from the streetlight, its arm outstretched, scratching my screen, looking into my house. I see a large head with pointed ears on top. It turns to look down the street, and then I see a snout. It turned and went into the carport where my truck is. Right after it went into the carport, I hear something jump onto my roof of the house over my bedroom. I can't believe there is now more than one. It ran across the roof to the living room and to the windows on the two-tiered roof. I can feel it looking in, staring at me. I leave my living room and try to find my dog, and I cannot find her, and she will not come. I eventually find her in my son's closet, lying down in the corner, shaking. I hear the one jump off my roof, and then it's gone. My dog calmed down, which made me calm down. We eventually went to sleep, and that was the last time for the year. The shadow in the window wasn't very big, maybe 5 feet tall, maybe 150 to 200 pounds. I've had encounters with dogmen before, but they were much bigger. My guess is it was two juveniles being curious and messing with me. Terrifying nonetheless to see something that doesn't exist scratching at your window and looking in at you from your skylight. I have come to the conclusion that they have traveled down the seasonal stream bed, and when the stream starts to dry up, there is no water to drink, they stop coming. They stopped as quickly as they started. They came back this year as well, about the same time, and stopped around the same time. Alright guys, here is the video clip from Kirk Stokes. I did slow it down a little and tried to clear it up a little more than what it was. I know I can see some sort of eye, I can see it breathe, and to me, knowing who it's from, I know that Kirk is a very serious researcher, or at one point he was until he was pushed out of the community. But if he would look at me and say, Jeff, without a shadow of a doubt, this is real, I would believe Kirk. Just based on who he is, what I know of him, what I've heard of him. And, I've had a couple of very brief interactions with him. Nothing major, but hopefully soon me and another friend that is friends with him can get him to come back into the community and really share his information, because it is valuable. So here is that video clip now. Tonight's final encounter. My uncle has always insisted that the following happened to him while he was still living in Michigan. He said he was driving his girlfriend home in the evening at the time that it happened. They were on a part of the road where there is thick trees on both sides when they saw something walk across the road. He said it was very large, brown or black, walking bipedally. When they got within 50 feet or so from it, it stopped walking and turned to face them. Although it was dark, he could still see it because it was standing in a direct line in front of his car and came in view of his headlights. He made out a large wolf-shaped head with long pointed ears and what looked like red eyes glowing in the dark. Those he saw almost instantly without a problem because of how they were glowing. In fact, it was specifically because they were glowing red. Its monstrous shape and the darkness all around them that they thought they had come across a demon. It waited for him to bring the car to a complete stop, and then it started running at them. It moved so fast that it came within a few feet from the car before coming into direct contact with the front of the car. It abruptly turned and ran off into the road in the direction that it was originally going and disappeared into the trees. They were sitting there in shock the whole time just watching it. When it ran into the trees, they tried following it with their eyes. First, they saw nothing, but then they saw a pair of red eyes become visible near where they had last seen it before it disappeared into the trees. Then they saw something else that made them realize that it was not alone. It was his girlfriend who noticed two pairs of orange eyes a little off to the side of the red. While they were sitting there, another two pair of orangish eyes became visible, making 5 in total that they became aware of. My uncle realized that they were still in danger and drove out of there, not waiting any longer. This was the creepiest experience he has ever told the family, but at the time there was no one in the family who believed him. When he told it to me many years later, I did believe him, but everyone else still thought he had seen a bear or something, or someone wearing a costume trying to have fun and scare people on the road. They said the other eyes could have been from friends of the person in that costume who were helping the individual play their joke out, but my uncle has never changed his story, not once. To this day, he still insists he saw something, and that it definitely was not a bear or a person wearing a costume. Alright everyone, I hope you all enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. Once again, anytime I share anything from anyone else, I cannot personally, in good conscience, back it 100%. Alright? The only thing that I can back 100% is what I saw with my own eyes. Other than that, take what you hear and what you agree with, take it, put it into the save pile, and then just put the other stuff that you don't agree with in kind of a pile for later. That way, if you need it, it's still there. But if you don't need it, you can dispose of it later. I hope that makes some sense. Anyway, I really do appreciate all of your support. Everyone, please stay safe, stay healthy, and may the Great Spirit watch over us all. May He guide us down that path that we call life.